Welcome to Feeling Asian, a podcast where two Asians talk about their feelings. I'm Youngmi Mayer.
And I'm Brian Park. And you're recording from NYC, Youngmi.
I'm in New York City still.
We'll get into that.
Before I get into that, I think we should introduce our wonderful guest because this is very exciting because this is somebody that we've wanted on the podcast for a long time and we wanted to have this discussion for a long time.
Oh, absolutely. So, well, I asked our guest, how would you like to be introduced on the podcast? And he threw it back at us and said, why don't you give it a shot? And he'll correct us if needed. So, listeners, you know how to read. You know who our guest is this week. But our guest is a creative director and I guess just overall streetwear icon. Entrepreneur.
I'm throwing
Have you heard of the Nike pigeon dunks? That's brainchild
Nice.
on this podcast. So listeners, give your ears to Jeff Staple.
What's up, everyone? How you doing? That was good.
That was good?
You nailed it, Brian. That was great. Yeah.
Wow.
Excellent elevator pitch.
Wow. Look at us, Youngmi. We're a real operation doing our due diligence here.
Yeah. I'm always really interested to see how like other people, because I know you guys are not you're not in hype beast world, you're not like waiting in line outside of Supreme.
You just
but
hurt
it's always
Brian's
interesting
feelings so bad. Brian's like, I am.
No, I didn't.
thought I was.
No. Well, no, I am quietly in it. Like I lurk, but back in the day, I would go on Hypebeast and like Super Future, and so I would
cool.
I would observe from the outside. But I definitely know you as a figure within the streetwear scene for sure.
Yeah. So it's always interesting to hear the introductions, from various outside industries. But
Right.
You did a great job. Thanks.
Oh, wow. Would you say that your involvement in streetwear is, I understand it might be the most public facing, but is it like an iceberg? Like, are there a lot of things under the surface that people just aren't privy to, but you're just doing creative direction for all sorts of projects?
There are a lot of things. But I don't mind that people don't know them all. And I also understand why there is like a tip of the iceberg, Like I have a lot of musicians, like musical friends who like do recording and like, even though they have like a catalog and a library of work, they always just want to hear the fans just play that one song. It's like, I've made other songs, but like for me, it is a little bit of a gift and a curse of like, you mentioned the Nike Pigeon Dunk, which is, is one of the most iconic shoes in the culture.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing that I was able to touch that. But it's also like, oh yeah, you did the Pigeon Dunk. It's like, no, I did other stuff too. But I get that that's what you know. So it's all good. I'm happy to be in the conversation, to be honest.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now we can add to that illustrious list, guest of the Feeling Asian podcast.
I love doing Asian podcasts, if that's a category. I don't know if that is, but I don't do many because I feel like I'm not like embraced fully by the Asian culture.
What?
Really? What?
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, like like the Asian Illuminati of like Apex and gold,
Bing
like
Chen,
those
gold.
like I'm not, for some reason they look at me and they're like, not yellow enough. I don't know why. Like I'm just like, I don't know. I've never reached out by those people. I don't know why.
Well, in a way, you're embodying the ethos of streetwear. Just kind of like non-conforming and
outside the box, baby.
I my theory is that like we could talk about this a little bit later, but like I grew up like basically white.
Yeah.
Like I grew up, the first 17 years of my life was like fully embarrassed to be Asian for like my entire childhood and doing everything I can to hide the fact that I was Asian. And I think that in everything that I create, even though now I'm proud to be Asian and I love being Asian, I think there is still that like, I don't fly like an Asian flag with my creations. And a lot of people don't know, a lot of people are big fans of Staple, but they don't know that the creator is Chinese, which is somewhat deliberate. But I know a lot of my other artist friends are like they're like, no, you will know that this brand or this creation is an Asian created thing first.
Right.
And then you will judge the thing. And I'm kind of the other way. So I feel like maybe that's part of the reason why I'm not embraced by the Asian Illuminati.
I mean, I really like having these discussions with our guests, because every single one of our guests has like this sort of story about how they relate to being Asian, living in America. And I really like hearing all of the sides of it, because I think there's no right way to express your Asianness. There's no like correct way to do that. And if you are so inclined to include it in your brand and your whole like identity as a creative or something, that's totally fine. But also if it's not something that you are doing, that's also totally, who cares? It's just it's your thing. Do what you want,
Exactly. It's people's lives.
Totally.
There's no wrong way to be Asian.
Oh, for sure. But there's also a timing thing too, because your agency, like Staple Design, it's been around for a while, and like you've been in the game for a long time. And I feel like these new businesses that have emerged, where it is like wholeheartedly embracing your like culture and like introducing it to the masses, that I started noticing more businesses pop up like that maybe in the last like 5 to 6 years. But your work like predates that by more than a decade, like I don't know if people would have been as receptive and during that time to be like, fuck yeah, like this is unapologetically Asian. Like I don't know, like it would have been different. It was just a different time,
Totally. I mean, this year is actually the 25th anniversary of Staples. So you're catching me in a good year. So 97 was the year I founded it. And the word streetwear wasn't invented yet, honestly. Like in 96, 97, you had hip hop culture, and then you had skate culture, and then you had punk culture. Right. But people weren't like blending them yet. So for me as a Chinese kid from New Jersey to be like, am I making urban wear? I'm not a white skater. I'm not a black rapper. I'm not a white punk artist. I'm just this Chinese kid from New Jersey. I don't know where I fit in. Right. So that's why I was like, let me just let the creation speak for itself and not fly the unapologetically Asian flag,
Yeah.
And I think, to that note, that what Brian said, like back in the idea that the creator of a brand is front facing is very new. Like even if you weren't Asian, like if you started a business in the 90s or early aughts, it just wasn't part of the whole thing that the creator had to be on there and they're vegan and blah blah. Do you know what I mean? You never saw who that person was. So it's a totally different time.
Think about those brands like back in the day, like Volcom, Quicksilver, DC, and then on the other end, Mecca, Aniche, Peli, like nobody. Who are the creators of those brands? Nobody knows.
No one knows.
They're just brands. Yeah. But now it's like, are you vegan? What are you left? Are you right? Are you like what are you?
It's
like
all part of it. Yeah. I mean, it's just a side effect of influencer culture. Like.
Yeah.
That's the new normal. Like, what's your story? And you want to know, like, who's the founder behind this? And do I align with this brand? Which is by extension just like the personality of the creator.
Some of it is good because you know that Abercrombie and Fitch documentary that just came out, and I was like,
no,
holy shit! If we all knew what that man looked like,
I gotta watch.
We would never have bought anything from that store because he is weird and he is a racist. He's literal like a white supremacist.
Wow.
So sometimes it's okay that we see who's making all the clothes that we wear and the things that we like.
Well, Jeff, we're really excited to have you join us on this podcast, and we can dive a little bit more deeply into, just streetwear in general. But as you know, this podcast is titled Feeling Asian, and we like to start up top of just asking each other how we feel. So, Youngmi, how are you feeling?
Okay, so I'm going to try to keep this simple. I missed my flight to Korea because there's a new visa requirement, and it started in 2021. So if you're going to go to Korea, please get the visa. I'm an American citizen, by the way, but I think I can apply for Korean citizenship because I was born there. So I'm going to try to do that while I'm there. The reason why that happened and I had to push back my flight it's a long story and I don't want to get into it here. It's basically like the airlines are really fucked up right now. There was no one to help me. Literally. I can't explain to you. There's one person at the airport and I was like fifth in line and everybody in front of me was taking 2 hours and I was like, I can't sit here until 1 a.m. or whatever. And then I was like, I tried to call them. I was on hold for over 3 hours without talking to anybody.
Damn.
And then the next time I tried to call them, they were like, there's no option for you to even wait on the phone. They took that option away. And I was like, what do I do? And so I tried to like figure it out on the website, right. And they like, of course they're not going to give me my money back. They're going to give me some voucher, and they're like, well, we'll have it out like in 6 months or 6 weeks. And I was like, what do I do? And it was just like, airline. I'm not going to talk about it anymore because it's boring. So I like.
Can you name the airline? Can you? Are you down to name the airline?
It's Air Canada, but I can't. But the thing is, it's all of them right now. You know, they're all fucked up because they all like got $1 majillion. I don't know if Air Canada did, but the Americans ones did, and they gave it all to their fucking CEO, and then they're like, no one wants to work for $8 an hour anymore. I'm like, bitch, who wants to be the one person at the counter getting screamed at?
Yeah.
No, for $8 and whatever. Yeah.
I didn't know that. So this is like a new thing because I didn't know like if you're visiting as a U.S. as a tourist, like if you needed a visa.
Yeah.
You know, but
you needed visa. Yeah.
Oh.
And
Has it
it's
always
like
been that way?
sometimes. No, it came in 2021. That's why I didn't get it because before.
So in theory, let's say that airlines were like fully staffed. Would you have been able to handle it on the spot?
I think yes. I could have been like, can you help me get on another flight? But the thing was that Mino's visa came in right away. Yeah. And mine came in a day and a half later. So at that point, sucks. I could have called the airline maybe, but there's nobody on the phone.
Yeah.
And then my theory is that Mino's came in right away because his government like legal name is James Bowen. And I was like, they saw male, white name, and they just like did his really fast. I was like, Koreans. That's my crazy theory, but it's probably not true.
Wait, I still want to know. I still want to know how you're actually feeling.
Okay, so let me get to the feeling. So the airport stuff I didn't want to talk about because apparently like everyone's going through this right now and they're all probably tired of hearing it. So this is what happened, and it was very emotional because I was at the airport and I was like trying to frantically apply for this visa over the internet, and I was stressed out because at that point there was like 40 minutes remaining to check in because it was 2 hours before the flight, right? Yeah. And I had used all my money on an emergency COVID test. It was $500, and then the permits were $150 each. I had $1,000 in my account, and I was like, I'll be okay. But because of the $500 and the permits were $300, I had like a little over $200 in my account, and I was like, how am I gonna fucking fly out? I have a 17-hour layover with $200 in my account, and I was stressing out. But I was like, I gotta get it on this flight. I gotta do it, right? Yeah. So I was fucking freaked out. I had no money. I was freaked out. Mino was like trying to show me his game on his iPad, and I had this like impulse to be like, shut up, Mino, like to stop that, like to yell at Mino. But I like held it. I like held it in, and I was like, like I'm stressed out. Mommy's trying to do this really fast. Can you just give me a few minutes? And I didn't yell at him. I didn't snap at him. And then we got in the line, and we were in the line for hours, like 5 hours, because there's one person. And when there was like 3 people in front of me, which would have meant 5 more hours of waiting, basically. Mino was like, I have to poo. And I was
no.
I was like, oh God, I've been waiting here for so long. And like, I know I could have asked the person, but like, I was like, I don't know how long we're going to be in the bathroom. Are we going to miss our spot? And so at that moment is when I was like, I'm going to give up. I'm going to go home and I'm going to try to figure it out at home. And then I was getting really emotional because I was feeling frustrated, and again I had this like impulse to like scream at him, but I didn't. And then he went to the bathroom, and then we were walking out, and as we were walking out of the airport, I was like, I had this like angry feeling like, oh, it's so hard being with this kid, and like if it wasn't with Mino, I could have gone on the flight probably, which is so fucking deranged because the whole point I was going there was for him, right? But like if you're a parent, you have that impulse to like scream at your kid when things are stressful. But then I was like thinking, I remember when I was a kid and we were in these situations, my parents would scream at me and I would get my ass beat, and it would somehow be my fucking fault. they'd be like, stop moving. And I remember like being a kid, and the truth is, when I was a kid at 8 years old, that whole incident of waiting at the airport was way harder for me than my parents. Like, they were adults, you know, and whatever. As adults, we love standing around. It's my favorite thing, right? Who cares? But like for Mino, that was really hard. And there was a point where he had to hold his poo, and he was also hungry. Like, and for an 8-year-old, that is like phenomenally way harder than an adult. And so as I was leaving the airport, I had that thought, and I just remember like, oh, if it was my parents, like I would have been like so traumatized. They would have screamed at me. They would have hit me. And so then at that moment, I told Mino, Mino, I was like, I'm so sorry that you had to wait that long, and it was so hard for you, and you're hungry, and I'm sorry you had to hold your poo. And I was like, I know that was really hard for you, but you were being so sweet the whole time. So I just want to thank you. And like,
wow, nice.
And then he gave me a hug, and I was just like, and I was like thinking in my head, like, fuck, I like lost all this money. I don't know if I'm going to get to go on this trip, and I wanted it for Mino. But I was like, on the car ride home, I was like crying a little bit, but I was like, at least minimally that I didn't cause Mino to have a traumatic core memory. Like, you know, like
you held it together. Yeah.
In that moment, I could have like had a horrible memory that he would remember as an adult, where his mom screamed at him and whatever. Like I have from my parents. And I was like, for Mino, it was just fun, and we were just goofing around, and like I was like, oh, what do you want to eat for dinner? And then we got burgers, so it was like, so I was like, because I was overwhelmed with these feelings that I was like a really bad mom, because I was like, I didn't fucking figure out this easy thing, like trying to get and I was like, other parents can figure shit, like other people can be adults so easy, but why is it hard for me? Like I was like thinking, and I was like feeling really like a shitty mom, like I had like let him down. But then I was like, I think in that way, I'm like I never like have my shit together, but in the other way, it's like just nice that I made sure that he was having fun. So
yeah.
You
definitely get a gold star that day for holding it all together.
For sure.
Because you could have just said, you're shitting in your pants. Like, just take shit in your pants. We're staying in this line.
100%. I think that's like...
I might have been like that.
I don't have kids, but I know for sure I would have been like that. It's like hard for me to put myself in those shoes, because I'm just like, you're a kid. You don't understand like the full gravity of the situation. Like, I'm sorry, this is going to suck for you. But trust me, kid, like the net is like, it's going to be worth it for you to shit your fucking pants.
Which would have been that traumatic experience that you would have had for the rest of his life.
Can you imagine? Like, dude, that would be a core trauma memory. Him like, I shit my pants at the airport, and there's like 1,000 people there.
Oh, God.
But here's the thing. I want to make sure that if any parents are listening to this, I've had those moments where I fucked up, where I've screamed at him and I made the wrong choice, because that's like the natural impulse. You're just like, be good, be quiet, like that. That's natural, and it comes natural to it comes natural to me, and I had to like in that moment really like hold it together not to do that, right. So but at the
end, that's what you need
to
to give yourself props for that moment where you like held it together.
I was proud of myself in that moment.
Yeah, and it all ended up working out in the end too, because now you're just going a month later than you originally planned.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it did work.
Overall, it worked out.
You know what? I was thinking that, Brian. I was like, I know at the end of the day, somehow I'm gonna figure this out, and we will go. But if I yell at him and he shits his pants, that's emotional damage. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I was like, let's not do that. Everything's gonna be fine. And you're right, Brian. It worked out at the end. So I'm really proud of myself that happened. So,
gold star.
Yes.
How about you, Brian? How are you feeling?
Yeah, it's so I just like, you know, I woke up this morning, read the news, and I guess what's on my mind is like this morning it was announced that the former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was assassinated, and that's just how I'm feeling. It's just like, it's so crazy. I feel like
the world is crazy.
Exactly. Like,
it feels like it's falling apart.
Yeah, you know, we're coming off the heels of another mass shooting, and you know, now there's like a new wave, like this BA.5 variant of COVID, which apparently is like makes you super ill and vomit. And
yeah, now
this, like the news of the assassination, I'm just like, what the fuck is going on with this world right now? I feel like so many. Has it always been this way? And I'm just older now, so I'm just more aware of how the world operates and what's going on around me. Because when I was a kid, all I cared about was like doing my homework and like when am I gonna go over to my friend's house. I don't know, but I guess that's just how I'm feeling. Is hot off the news cycle. It just seems like a lot of things are falling apart, and the world feels kind of crazy right now. I don't know if you guys like feel that way too.
No, I woke up and read that news too, and it was really kind of shocking to me.
Yeah, It's especially shocking considering how strict gun laws are in Japan. Like, you just don't.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I'm like, wow, I didn't know this kind of thing happened.
He had to make a homemade gun.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's like a homemade weapon. Yeah.
And you know, I'd be interested.
And then, you know, can I like
please?
My mind. I'm gonna be really honest. Like, my mind went to kind of a dark place, and I was like, low key, we need some of that energy in America. Like, there's some people that like need to be taken care of in America, and I was like, why aren't we doing that? Like, I was like, I shouldn't go there, but like,
I agree with you, Jeff. And by taken care of, we mean they need to be hugged. That's what we mean by that.
Yes.
Some people need to get hugged real hard in America.
Like a grizzly bear hug.
Yes, like a
hug the
with
fuck
a handmade
out of
gun. I'm gonna hug the fuck out of it. I'm just kidding.
Just a bear hug with like a bear with sharp claws hug.
Some people,
some people just need to be looked at and be told like, hey, I understand that you really need to shit your pants right now, and I'm really upset at you, but I'm letting you know that I'm gonna give you a hug and we're gonna solve this together.
Yeah.
You don't have to hold your you
don't have to hold your poo.
But some people need to be told that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just I'm keeping it short and sweet this week. That's just what's been preoccupying my mind today is, you know, like, world is crazy, and I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. It's confusing.
You know what's so funny? The day because that was like the day between my flight fiasco. I like how I'm like counting that as one of the world tragedies. There's a mass shooting. I missed my flight. I'm just kidding.
Shinzo
of course
Abe
I don't.
Yeah,
then Shinzo Abe got assassinated, and then I also missed my flight. No, I'm just kidding. But the day before he got assassinated, I kept feeling like in the air, like what Brian said, like it feels like something's about to fucking pop off. You know? Mm-hmm. Like all this shit, the mass shootings, the Russian war, the Ukraine, you know, and the randomly Shinzo Abe, which I'm very out of touch with Japanese politics. So I don't even know what's going on there, you know,
It's just a lot of stress. There's a lot of stress in the air, you know, and even in America, like the economic state and like the constant conversation, like, is a recession going to happen? Like inflation rates are crazy. Gas prices are through the roof. Like
nothing's working.
There's just a lot of stress.
No one's there.
A lot of stress in the air. So,
just like at Air Canada, no one's there.
Just like at Air Canada, young me missed her flight. There's a lot of stress in the air.
No one's there.
No, but I'm serious. Like when I went there, I felt this like, I'm just joking about my flight, but I felt like there was nobody working. And like all these there's nobody there because these like rich people are just hoarding wealth, and people are too poor to go to work because they're paying so little. It's like they can't even afford to drive their cars to the airline to work because they're paying. I'm like, and then they're like, why isn't anyone working? It's like, because it's $95 for gas, you know, like
right.
Something's about to pop off.
But but Jeff, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling based on all of that. I'm feeling very like, or I'm trying to feel very measured and considered. So I think that like goes to protecting myself by creating sort of like, I don't know if barriers is the right word, or like just I'm trying to create like a nice comfy force field around myself so that like, yes, I'm hearing these news, I'm absorbing everything that's happening, but I also know that if I open the door to it, it will overly consume me.
Right.
And so I'm trying to just really protect myself, really. And what that means is just being like very calm, considered, and measured. I also have like a very big week coming. There's going to be a ton, like my next 2 weeks is like crazy amounts of travel and meeting and public appearances and stuff. And so mainly I don't want to get sick, like I'm going to be seeing a lot of people, being in air a lot. So I'm just trying to be like very protective of my own soul, if you will.
That makes a lot of
great.
sense. Yeah. I mean, for the listeners who aren't watching on YouTube, Jeff, I was going to say you have this zen-like quality about you. I don't know if it's just the interior. You have like the plain white brick wall behind you. You got that, you got that shaved head. You just like very zen. But would you say that you work well in like pressure situations? Like, do you go into that mode when things are like really chaotic and stressful?
Yeah, I'm. I spent not a couple of years, like nearly like a decade, like playing very high stakes poker.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I even like went to the World Series of Poker a few times, and it's like, yeah. And I did that. I mean, I do love the game, but I mainly did that to train my brain to abuse it to those high pressure situations, so that when life throws them at me, it's like I have the poker face,
That is so interesting. Like you
ever see those kung fu movies where like the dude just hits the wall like with his fist over and over again to like build tolerance?
It's like in Kill Bill when she punches out.
Exactly. That was me with poker. I was like, I'm gonna like just keep hitting my brain so that when these situations happen, I'm just like, this is nothing compared to what I faced in round 7 of the World Series of Poker with $3 million on the table and someone calling my bluff.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a fascinating way to approach poker.
I mean, last year, so I read this a book last year that left a pretty big imprint on me, and it's called The Biggest Bluff, and it was written by a New Yorker a journalist, and she basically was like, I don't know anything about poker, give me a year, I'm going to dedicate myself wholeheartedly to this, and I'm going to try to qualify for the World Series of Poker. And she wrote how like poker to her is like the perfect game that emulates life, because there is like it's the variable of uncertainty, and in life you're making decisions based on uncertainty all the time, and it's the same thing with poker. And so what you just said is like basically you were living that, whatever she just like described was like training yourself in the day-to-day situations by proxy of poker.
Totally. And in a poker table, you're playing against 10 people, right? There's 10 people at a table.
Yeah.
And literally every personality at that table is a representation of someone in your life. Like there's the guy who's going to lie through his teeth. There's the person who's such a like has no spine that can't get anything done. There's the jackal. There's like, the wise eagle. There's like all these different like spirit animals at the table. It's really fascinating. Whoa. And it's good because it's like you could just like basically clock in, get 3 hours of like this mental sort of like calisthenics, and then just leave. So like there's not really a way to prepare yourself for that in real life, because when like that situation hits you, Youngmi, like at the airport, how do you just like let the storm just like wash over you without like freaking out about getting wet, which based on what you said, you actually did an amazing job. That's why I gave you the gold star, because you were like, I am not going to smack my son across the face right now. Like I'm going to actually like turn this around, and praise him for it.
So
that was awesome.
I think that's a fascinating way to approach poker, with the knowledge of knowing that you're doing that to strengthen that part of your brain. I think that's a really interesting approach, because I've never heard anyone do that before, because usually they just like poker. But I do have a similar thing, I think, that trained me in a sense that I didn't do on purpose. but because like what I'm hearing you say with the poker players, you're learning so much psychologically about how the world works and what kind of different people there are in the world, right?
Right.
Yeah.
For me, I think my version of that was working in restaurants as a server.
I knew you were
10
gonna
years,
say that.
right?
I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah, it's so
That's
psychological.
hell. That's hell.
But that's the same thing. Like shit is popping off everywhere, and you have to hold it together. Because someone you gotta get someone their fucking spaghetti. It's so stupid, but like shit is popping off every night. It's like psycho, and then you're dealing with and then after doing that for so long, it was the same thing. When people walked in the door, I knew like what was going on psychologically.
Character reading, right?
Yep.
Right.
And you just pick up on that, and I think that was very helpful for me in the airport situation. And I think people should really be in the service industry because the psychology, what you learn, the psychology of people is like what's that called? What's that called when there's like it's something that has so much value? Invaluable,
priceless.
It's priceless.
Yeah,
it's
priceless,
worthless.
yes.
It's worthless.
It's priceless. No.
It's priceless, and you can use that for the rest of your life. But yeah, that's like what it sounds like. That's amazing. You do have that
awesome.
poker face vibe.
But I don't want to be evil about it. I'm just trying to
it's a strength
use it for what it is.
mind training exercise.
Yeah.
Well,
but Youngmi, speaking of your days in the restaurant industry, I wanna take a moment and give you your flowers while I still can. But I remember meeting you back in the Mission days when it was down on East Broadway, and to just see how your, I don't know if you call it a career, but I'll call it a career, like how your career has transitioned from that to comedy to writing, and how funny you are, and like how you sort of share your trials and tribulations of being a mother. I've watched from a side the whole sort of like pivoting and shifting and transitioning, and I just want to applaud you for like how you've represented yourself through those years.
Aww.
Thanks, Jeff. That's so nice of you. Yeah, it was definitely like, I think I've talked about this in so many words on here, but it was definitely like this thing where I definitely shifted from somebody who thought that they weren't allowed to do what they want to do to like one day being like, no, I'm allowed to do this, and if I don't do it now, there's no better time. And
the best is when I think there was like I heard through like the grapevine that you were going to be like a stand-up comic. I'll be straight up honest with you. There's a part where people were probably like, oh, she's crazy. Like she's like, right? Yes. Like, oh, she's going to be a stand-up. She's wrong. Crazy.
They're not wrong.
Okay. Yeah. But then when like, so coming into that with that attitude of like, you can't make it as a comic, like that's crazy. But then like, holy shit, she is genuinely fucking really smart and funny. Like,
oh, thank you.
That you had to overcome the hate. It wasn't like you came in with a clean slate of like, oh, you're probably going to be like really smart and funny. People were like, no, she's probably off her rocker, but it's like, no, holy shit. Like, she's really, really funny. So kudos for that.
That means so much, Jeff. But also I have to say I've been very lucky and very like blessed with such great fans, I think, especially from this podcast, who are just so amazing, and I'm very thankful for that.
I know it is so hard. It is so hard what you do. I know that to be as open and honest as you are on camera, like it's fucking hard.
That's the best compliment ever. I thought you were fucking crazy, but you know what? You were kind of funny.
Yeah. No. You there's a fine line between crazy and like genius, and it's like, to me, what I've even found is like the same people who called you crazy, like you can do something where the next day we're like, oh no, she's actually genius. Like, but the same person is saying both things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I've had that before too.
You've
so like, I definitely appreciate it. Oh yeah. When people like my family, my loved ones were like, you're going to quit school and start a t-shirt brand. You're crazy. And then, because this person's wearing it, or because this magazine wrote about it. Oh, Jeff, you're actually a genius. Wow. It's like, no, I remember you called me crazy last week. I remember that. I'll never forget
Asian
that shit.
Parents. Yeah. No one ever said that to my face. So
slide into your DMs. Yo, Jeff, I remember you said you were doing that thing. Been a fan since day one. So happy for all your success, bro.
Brian, that happens monthly. Where like some kid from my high school in New Jersey who bullied me is now asking me for like kicks and T-shirts.
Dox him.
Yo, you remember me? You remember
Dox
me in
him.
junior year? I was like, yeah, I remember when you fucking gave me a wedgie. And then, you know.
I support doxing bullies. Dox him.
That's so funny. Well, Jeff,
So
you know,
funny.
I want to dive into this, the next part of our conversation here. And up top, you know, as we established, you're influential in the world of streetwear, which is a subculture that Young Mi and I have noticed is very popular among Asians. Like, at least walking around New York, you see lines outside of Supreme, you see lines outside of Kith. A lot of Asians. And we want to know, I mean, I don't know if you have the answer to this or what your theory is, but like, why do you think that is?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't have the exact answer. I have like hypotheses of why.
Yeah.
You know, street culture involves design and creativity on one side, and then on the other hand, you have this like really tight knit community, and there's like sort of like a code language with streetwear, right? Like if you walk up to two hype beasts talking, you might not understand everything they're saying because they're using all this like lingo and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And then of course there's like, in order to do anything in streetwear, like you need this like hustle entrepreneurial spirit, you know?
Okay.
And I think if you like, being Asian is like a triangulation of all of those things. Like we like well-designed things, we like creative things,
right?
We like a tight-knit community because that's where our families were like from, you know. We understand having like a different language and a different code, and we obviously all work our ass off. Like we understand work ethic. So I think streetwear sort of like checks all those boxes. Now but then I thought like, but maybe so do other races too. Like, so I don't know why isn't like, you know, I don't see like a bunch of like Southeast Asian Indian kids like online. Like, why don't they love streetwear as much as like, you know, Pacific Asian people? You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't really have an answer. I also think there's something slightly rebellious about doing or being involved in streetwear and sneakers. It's not like rebellious, like joining a gang or like, you know, doing graffiti, something that could put you in jail.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it's like light rebellion, which is like good enough for Asian kids.
Okay,
you know, like,
okay.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, I have edge, but I'm not actually going to go like steal a car. But like, it's cool to like silkscreen t-shirts like on the side, you know?
Wait, what do you mean by Pacific Asians versus Southeast Asian? Are there different like ethnicities among Asian groups that like it?
I'm the worst person. I don't even know what I was saying like, you don't really see like Indian kids online.
As opposed to like Southeast Asians.
As opposed to like Chinese
or like Filipino.
Japanese. Yeah. You don't even see that many of like, I feel like the closer you get to the equator, the less they're into streetwear.
Oh,
you know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
I mostly see Japanese, Korean, Chinese, less like Indian, Southeast Asian. Although I will say we have a huge Southeast Asian contingency, but there's so many other factors in that though. It's like there's economics and just like communication tools and stuff like that, you know. So there's a lot of other factors.
Yeah, I mean, this is a conversation that I've had amongst my friends, and again, these are all hypotheses. Like originally, I thought, okay, maybe it's because like I noticed that in line, a lot of people who are involved in streetwear culture, it's a lot of Black people and Asians, and I was like, okay, well, these are two like marginalized groups in America. Streetwear is, you know, culturally, it's founded on like rebellion. It's brash. It's kind of like being authentic and letting your voice be known. So maybe like because these two groups are marginalized, this is their way to let their presence be known in America and being like, hey, we're not going anywhere. We're here. And this streetwear like kind of embodies what I'm all about. But then then I quickly realized like, well, that applies in America, I guess, but a lot of Asians in Asia are really into streetwear where they're not really dealing with the same socio-political nuances that exist here in America. But then, but I like your point of like rebellion because like
that makes sense.
Yeah, because like when I was in high school, my parents, like, they were pretty strict Korean immigrants, and they wanted me to dress a certain way. So my form of rebellion, in a way, was like, oh, I really like these Nike Dunks. Like, my dad thinks they look stupid, but I think they look cool. And so it's not, I'm never going to steal a car, that's for sure. So maybe this is my form of, like, fuck you to the man. Like, I'm going to, I'm going to get these
And
sneakers.
It's also, like, just uniqueness and expression, right? I think maybe in, like I grew up in a very normal high school, like, very white suburban high school.
Right.
And I don't know about today, but like in the 90s, you wanted to blend in with your crew. Like, if everyone was wearing pink Champion hoodies, then you should wear a pink Champion hoodie. Like, you don't want to come in and be like the different kid, because you get bullied and ridiculed, right? But I think a little bit later on, and especially in Asia, I think this is the case. Like, if everyone's wearing one thing, you actually want to be different. It's like cool that you're different versus it's cool that you're blending in. It's a very different, like, subtext in the way people think. Yeah. And so if everyone's wearing Abercrombie and Fitch to school and some kid wears a Futura t-shirt, it's like, what's Futura? And, like, that's the cool kid now, Right. So I think that's a little bit of an unlock as well.
So did you get your start by, it sounds like you mentioned, like, you dropped out and you made t-shirts. Was that your first foray into streetwear? And
Yep.
At that time, were you making t-shirts just simply because you liked t-shirts, or did you kind of recognize this is a little bit different, this synthesizes culture, different subcultures, I feel like this is going to be the future wave?
No, it wasn't like that at all. I was an art student at Parsons, and I took a silkscreen class, which was like silkscreening on paper and canvas to, like, learn how to silkscreen that way. And I did it for a little bit, and I was like, I'd start having, like, a stack of prints in my apartment. Like, I used to live in Bushwick, and, like, I'm like, why do I have, like, 50 prints in my shoebox-sized apartment in Bushwick? Like, what if I put that same piece of art on a t-shirt and gave it to just 20 of my friends that take the subway, the bus, the train, they walk the streets? Now my art is, like, out there. It's kind of like a graffiti mentality.
Right.
And so I was like, I'm gonna print on t-shirts. So instead of bringing in prints, I brought in t-shirts and I started printing them. And I remember the teacher was like, you can't print on t-shirts in this class. And I was like, why the fuck not? Like, I'm paying tuition. Like, what's the difference? They're like, and he was like, you just can't. And I hate it when people just say, like, you just can't without, like, a proper reason. So me and a buddy, we, like, basically kept the windows of the silkscreen lab unlocked, and then at night we would break in to the silkscreen lab and silkscreen shirts all night long, just to be able to get the shirts printed. And then I was wearing the shirt one day in the Lower East Side. There's this old, you remember the streetwear brand 555 Soul?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so I wore it into that store, and the manager was like, whoa, that's a cool shirt. Where'd you get that? And I was like, I made it. And he was like, oh, if you make 12, let's sell them in the shop. And I was like, really? Whoa. And that was the first order. That was, like, the first business transaction of Staple. And I had to, like, break into school again to make 12 shirts and then, like, go back. And then they sold out, and then Union, which was, like, another iconic streetwear store, that's in LA now, but they used to have one in Soho. They saw, and they're like, we want to order 24. So then I had to break back into school, make 24, sell it at Union, 555 reordered. Like, so I was, like, ping-ponging these orders back and forth, but all by, like, breaking into school constantly to do it.
Yeah,
that's that entrepreneurial spirit. That's, like, such an origin story. Hustler.
I will not take no for an answer.
Yeah, that's like, in real life, there was an old HBO show called How to Make It in America, and it kind of reminds me of that. Like,
many people told me that show was, like, loosely based on my career. That's why I never watched the whole thing.
Yeah, it sounds like it, because I mean, instead they were just trying to, like, make a denim company, but it is very, like, organic DIY, like, break into the school, and we got to make this by any means possible. But wow, that's super fascinating. And
it was actually, that was the reason why I quit school, because this dude from Japan bought one of the shirts at Union, brought it back to Japan, and then he calls me up and he's like, I want to order some shirts too. And I was like, wow, cool. You're like, you want to order a shirt and you're from Japan? Sure, I'll make you some. How many do you want?
Yeah.
He's like, I want 1,000.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
and I'm still breaking in this. I was like, I cannot break into school with 1,000 shirts. So like, that's when I decided to leave school in my second year. So I'm a double dropout. I actually dropped out of NYU first to go to Parsons, and then I dropped out of Parsons to do Staple. And so I don't have a college degree to show for 4 years of schooling, which is really dumb.
Damn, that's crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
But all of it sounds so organic, though. You know, you're just like
It was.
making T-shirts, and you were happy to put your art out into the world. But you know, people were receptive to it, and it kind of just kickstarted your business.
You mentioned about, did I see the wave or the future of this industry? I was like, I had no idea. Never wrote a business plan in my life. You know, never.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But you know, you did briefly mention how, you know, that is what it means to be cool, is like you kind of want to stand out from the crowd. And it sounds like your T-shirt stood out from the crowd, and that's how it drew the attention of these buyers and the managers of these like well-regarded streetwear stores. And it's that sort of mentality is, we can all observe it now in the form of sneaker culture. Like sneakers, everyone's all about like the exclusive sneakers, like collaborations, and you know, it's not uncommon to see Jordans now selling for, you know, $800 on the resale market. And what are your thoughts on all of this? And because right now, like bots and there's resellers who make it nearly impossible to buy anything. Is this just the new normal? Like, do you think corporations like Nike have any interest to even fight against this like manufactured scarcity?
It's not that easy. So there are instances where a corporation does manufacture scarcity, as you say. Like they're making something and they're making 300 pairs because that's part of the storyline of why they want to make that little.
Right.
But largely, trying to guess how many things you're going to sell a year and a half to 2 years in advance is actually really difficult. Because I design shoes, right? And I'm designing a shoe right now that's going to come out in 2025, okay? And
oh, wow.
So the company that I'm collaborating with is like, okay, how many pairs do you want to make? And I'm like, well, fuck, in 2025, like, what's the economy going to be? What's the trend going to be? Will this thing I'm designing even matter?
Right.
And then don't forget, I'm financially on the hook for those too. Like, I have to pay for the production of those shoes. So it's like, how many do you want? It's like, well, shit, like I want to be conservative and smart with the number, because if I make too many, then they end up going on sale and at the factory outlet, and that's no good. Nobody wants that.
Right.
Yeah.
If I make too little, maybe what you say happens. They are shorted, they're botted, their resale prices are high. So I'm trying to find, trust me, if a crystal ball told me 1.28 million people are going to want your shoe, I will make 1.28 million pairs of those shoes.
Yeah.
But I don't have that number, so I'm guessing in the dark, and I want to be conservative. And I think that's where the resale largely happens, outside of those instances where it's like, okay, we're going to make 300 of this,
money.
you know?
Well, can I ask you, Jeff? Because you said that obviously it's, and we can tell why it's bad if your shoe goes on to like a mega sale place, but why is it bad for you if you make too few of them and it goes on to resellers and bots? Why is that bad for you as a business person?
It's actually not bad. It's bad from a very simple business standpoint. It's bad because the saying goes, I'm leaving money on the table.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, let's say 5,000 more people want. I just lost 5,000 more customers, right? So that's the bad part. But the good part is it creates this FOMO. And it creates this idea that, whoa, what Jeff does, people really want. So my reputation increases. That's the good part about it.
I thought, for some reason, I was like reading it as you saying that it's bad when people have. But I understand what you're saying now. Yeah, I see what you mean.
I mean, ideologically, do you think that streetwear should be accessible to everyone, or do you like that it's sort of like an if you know you know sort of culture?
I struggle with that a lot, because I do think it should be an if you know thing. I think it should be like a subculture. But then the question begs is like, how do all these people then make a living if our living is based on limited edition stuff, like, you know, small supply, right? Like, we can make a decent living, but like, how do you produce the next Ralph Lauren or Tommy Hilfiger out of streetwear then, if we're based on being cool and like, if you know, you know? That's something that I'm trying to like figure out.
Yeah.
Well, you get to stay the cool person. You don't, because Tommy Hilfiger was
Yeah.
cool for a second, and then it was just it's at Nordstrom Rack a lot.
I know.
It's
but your landlord doesn't
Walmart.
accept cool points.
That's true. That is true. I know that.
Like, yo,
Well,
I'll put you on my Instagram instead of rent.
yeah.
Wait, can I say something about your first ever T-shirt that sold like insane amounts? And kind of like what Brian was sort of touching on.
Yeah.
So is there like I guess like, do you have the like it factor way to read it in a product? Like do you know when something's gonna be hot? Like do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Do you want to know the answer? I do know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I look at something and I know that this is gonna make millions of dollars, or this won't.
So
how do you know?
Can you give us case studies, like in the past, like what were you right on, and maybe in the past, like what's something you were wrong on?
No, I don't want to give case studies because
Sure.
But I have a golden rule, which is like, if I love your brand, if I buy your brand, and if I wear your brand, that's what I mean by love. Because I'll like brands, but I won't buy them and wear them. But I respect what they're doing. Sure. I like the brand. Then I love brands, meaning I spend my money and I wear them.
You wear it.
If I like your brand and I wear your brand, I know you're not making money. Facts.
Yeah.
Because I know my taste, and I know I'm weird. I have strange taste levels. I'm very nuanced, and I care about things that no one else cares about. And if you're reaching my radar, you're not reaching anyone else. Like, you're reaching the 1%. Okay. And I know you're barely breaking even. You're barely making rent. You're not paying your vendors. I know it.
Right.
Yeah. And so
funny.
if I kind of like your brand, but I don't want to wear it and I don't want to buy it, you're probably like, I'll give you an example. I don't want to give you an example. I was going to say a brand name, but
okay, we don't have to name names.
That's so interesting.
No, you know what? I will give you an example. Fuck it.
Okay. Yes.
Like, for example, Rip and Dip. Do you know that brand?
Oh yeah, it is like
it's like the cat. So wait. I love the founders. I love the brand, for what they've done.
I wouldn't wear it, but
I wouldn't wear it and I wouldn't buy it.
Right.
But I now know, they're making a shit ton of money.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So that's like my radar.
Okay. I totally get what you're saying. I'm into clothing and stuff, and I love finding like niche brands that I'm like, oh, this is really like, if you know. But like you said, those people are probably not scaling that much, and they're probably not making that much money from it. Where on the flip side, like I recently learned Massimo, for instance. I grew up learning that. I thought that was just like some Target brand, but in fact, they originally started as like a streetwear skater brand who then sold out to Massimo. I'm like, oh, that founder is doing just fine, just selling out to the max and selling to Target.
The brand.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with building a business and making money from it. Like, that's kind of the point of making a business.
Yeah.
That to me is the difference between being like an artist and like an entrepreneur,
I see.
Yeah. Like, if you want to be an artist, then maybe the money doesn't matter and the work matters first. But if you have a business and you have mouths to feed and you have payroll and taxes and rent and like, then it kind of has to make money,
Yeah, that is a great point.
That's the balance that I'm always struggling to do with Staple, is like, how do you balance like the cash and the craft, right? Like, keep it art, but also keep it a business, because I have like 50 full-time employees, and they like, some of my employees have kids. So it's like, I'm not even feeding their own mouth, but like their mouths, and I can't just be like, I'm going to make this for the art of it. I don't give a fuck how much money it makes. Then like, people don't eat.
People like talk shit about business versus the artist, and they like kind of like look up to the artist, but there is a layer of selfishness to it that I think you're like touching on, because like, as a business owner and as an entrepreneur, you are feeling responsible for the people who work for you. And if you were a quote unquote true artist, whatever, that like off in the woods somewhere doing ayahuasca, you wouldn't give a shit about anyone but yourself. So there is a selfishness.
It's pure
there.
ego.
Yeah,
There you go.
That's sometimes I don't think, because every time you talk about people talk about their relationship business to art, they always think the art is the purity and the business is the yucky side. But it's very layered.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, talking about work, you seem very, very busy to me, and like somebody that's just like always on the move. Like, what's your like, not to sound like Vogue magazine, like what's your work-life balance? Like, what's your relationship to work and, having a life outside of that?
I have no work-life balance. Zero.
That's hustler mentality, kids.
Yeah. No, I recently started seeing a therapist, and she's like trying to inject like separation of work from my life. She's like, you should try to take like 3 days off, see how that feels. And I'm like, what? No way. No, but my what I argue with her about is that, like, the thing is, I actually really love what I do.
Okay.
So like, I understand that if you work a 9 to 5, you clock in, clock out, and you sit in a cubicle, and like you hate your job, then you need like a break from that, right?
Right.
But if you actually love what you do all the time, why would I want to take a break from that? Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was trying to like explain to her, and even my parents, and sometimes even like family members, loved ones in my life, because I do quote unquote work so much, what they view as work,
Yeah.
But like, one analogy that I try to tell them is like, imagine your job was to test hammocks on a beach. Somebody has to do that job. Somebody has to test if a hammock is a good hammock or not, right?
Right.
So your job is to lay on a hammock, drink margaritas, and see if that hammock is good or not.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a vacation from that job? Probably not, because it's like your job is like so fun, relaxing, inspiring, whatever it is.
Right.
And that's what I do. Like, every day is so fun and so exciting. There is stressful parts for sure.
Right.
That just goes with the territory, I think. But I never desired to be like, I need 10 days without my laptop, without my phone, without talking to people, to just like not touch staple. I never have that urge. I'm only now doing it because my therapist is forcing it upon me.
Wow.
I'll give it a try. I'll see. And I did try it 2 times this year.
Oh, you did. You tried.
You're like, worst 20
tried.
days
I
of
did
my
try.
life.
I did try.
It actually was. I went to Sedona for a week,
No.
completely unplugged,
No.
and then
Played some
can't.
golf
my
out there.
grandma my grandmother was hospitalized.
Oh no.
And you
Now,
didn't know.
obviously, there's no, yeah, exactly. Obviously, there's no correlation between the two.
Right.
But in my strange survivalist mind, I'm like, see what happens when I took a vacation? The world fell apart, like,
Yeah.
and I wasn't there to fix it. So like, yeah.
You came back, Shinzo Abe got assassinated. You're like, I knew I should.
I could have done something. I could have. I could have.
Wow. Yeah,
that's
I
an
mean,
interesting outlook.
That's super interesting outlook, because on the other side of the coin, it's like you're living the dream. Like your work is something that you truly are passionate about and something you love, where it's like work is fun and doesn't feel like work. And I think for a lot of people, like people
They
are
relate
either
to that.
they're either looking for that, or people just concede that altogether and are like, I'm just going to treat work as work and then I'm going to unplug,
Yep.
Also,
I
like, oh, sorry, what were you saying?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying also, like what you were saying about me doing comedy. I understand that now, doing comedy, because like, I'll go on a vacation, but I kind of want to write. I want to keep writing jokes. Like I want to keep like, I love doing it. And I mean, technically it's work because it's like making me money, but it's like, it's also me writing jokes. I love fucking doing that,
Right. Imagine someone was like, don't open your notes and type any jokes for 10 days.
No,
You'd be
it's
like,
fun
that
for me.
sounds sucky.
Yeah.
that sucks.
It's like my little brain workout. So I get that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that either. I would not go to Sedona for what? I'm gonna lay down. Sounds like shit. Get a massage. Who cares?
That sounds pretty nice to me.
But yeah, if I were to give any advice to like a young person out there, I would say like, find the thing that you love to do the most, that you can't stop doing. You don't want to go to sleep. You just want to keep doing it, and no matter how weird that thing might sound like, you can nowadays make that into a job. Like,
literally.
I don't care if it's like playing video games, fucking, you could literally, I don't know, like anything. You can find a niche for anything and make it into a job right now.
Yeah.
Literally.
Totally. Yeah.
Yep.
That's just like how the media cycle, like that's just how we consume content now. It's in these like really hyper specialized niches. So,
Exactly.
yeah, super interesting. Well, we've reached the second half, not the second half, but we're gonna hit you with some questions that we like to ask all of our guests, Jeff. And up top, what we want to know is, what is something you're loving right now?
My partner, my wife.
Wow.
Is that? I don't want to be like
such a good guy.
No, I'm not. I really do love her. No, I think because I haven't seen her in a few weeks, so I'm really like appreciative of like my life partner. Shout out to Liz, and Anne's sister. Did you know
Liz? Yeah.
Anne is the reason why I met Liz.
I think I knew that, but I forgot. We're talking about our Jeff's sister-in-law, who is my very close friend, Anne Ishii. Oh. Yeah, so I think I heard that, but I forgot. What was the story?
Yeah. So when I first met Liz, I met her at like this corporate like sort of event, and I saw her and I immediately like crushed on her so hard. Yeah. And found out that was Anne's sister, who I was working with Anne at the time. Oh. So I was like, Anne, you have to like hook me up with your sister. Like, she's so dope. And she's like, Anne says, you're sitting next to her husband. I was like, what? This guy's her husband? So she was married at the time. And then I was like, fine. Yeah, whoopsie. So didn't do anything, obviously. And then 6 years later, Anne calls me up and she's like, Liz got a divorce. Wow. I was like, oh, shit. And she's like, and I was single at the time too. So she's like, next time you're in LA, you guys should get lunch. So we got lunch and it was like, love at first sight. And we've been together for
love a comeback
12 years.
Story, baby.
Yeah, I was like gorillas in the mist. Like I waited. I was like waiting in the wings for her.
That's actually a really sweet story. I didn't realize. I remember some parts of the story. I didn't realize it was 6 years later. Wow.
Yo, but you know what's funny? This year, we went to Philly and we took Anne out to dinner, and like we thanked Anne, like, you know, Anne, we just want to thank you so much. Like you really had the vision and you really like put us together, and we're so thankful for that. Yeah. She's like, to be honest, I thought you were all just gonna have a roll in the hay and have some fun. I didn't think you guys would make it. Wow. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, I thought you guys were just gonna like, you know, have a little fun and that's it. I was like, damn, okay. Well, thank you anyway. But
despite all odds.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, conversely, what's something you're hating right now?
I mean, going back to what you were saying earlier, I'm kind of hating America right now. Like,
fuck yeah.
This country is broken. You know,
broken.
I love the idea of America, and I'm obviously proud to be American. Right. But what's happening these days is like we're just going backwards in time. It's really crazy. And it's really like the thing that bothers me more is that like there's always going to be evil men doing evil things. That's normal, to be honest. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The thing that bothers me the most is like the vast majority of the people either don't care or actually maybe want it to go backwards in time. Yeah. That's like like 15 men in the Illuminati wanting to like do evil shit is like, that's expected. Right. But when potentially 51% of the nation is like either indifferent or agreeing with that, then it's like, wow, we are a broken country, you know?
That's what bothers me too. It's not the like in the like totally out of touch bonkers way that people are defending these actions, and like just seeing stuff like, you know, after the Roe v. Wade got overturned, just seeing this comment over and over, men being like, well, if women weren't such sluts, then you won't need abortions. And I'm like, the fact that you have that thought, and it's literally 50% of Americans, that's the kind of shit that's rolling around in their head, is terrifying. Like that kind of backwards ideology is so scary.
It is that is a great distinction, because you often hear like the rationale of these court decisions lies on like, well, like it's a very literal interpretation of the Constitution, or this is just what the text says. But what it boils down to is it's ultimately about control, and the people in control are just these like old white dudes, and they want to like create a world where it benefits them most, because that's, you could argue that's just human nature perhaps, but yeah, it is very scary. Like this is what people want, is to go back to these like less progressive times.
And the people brainwashed into agreeing with them is scary. It's like I always, like you said, men in power that are shitty are always going to be around. But my fantasy is that we're all going to be like in it together on the streets, like fighting back, fighting the man. But it's like, actually, there's only a few of us trying to fight back. And most of people are like, I like this. I love being oppressed. Like, it's so weird. It's so weird.
Yeah. They're not. Some people are just like, it's actually not so bad. Maybe like I don't know if I want to fight this fight. Oh.
Yeah, and you're like, what?
Bonkers. So, Jeff, so we're gonna ask you what you're ashamed of, but for the listeners out there who want to know what Jeff is ashamed of, you're gonna have to head on over to our Patreon at patreon.com/feelingasian. For one, it's the best way to support this podcast. Cut the middleman out, direct to us. But in any case,
except for Patreon. Patreon is the middleman.
Patreon takes a cut. Patreon takes.
They take a big cut.
Yeah. What am I saying? Actually, we should.
No, what you need to do is
give our Venmo.
You need to do an NFT. You need to do an NFT. Then you cut out the middleman.
Yes. Yeah.
You NFT the show, and only people who hold the Being Asian NFT get to hear the content. I'm totally shilling like a crypto bro right now. But anyway, so wait, if you don't subscribe to the Patreon, do you just hear beeps for the rest of the show now?
They get a nice interstitial music that we hide.
Cool.
So give us like a juicy teaser that we can then cut on. And be like, damn, I've never said this before to anyone.
Okay. Yes.
All right, Jeff.
Okay. Well, I never talk about this, but this is something that I'm really, really ashamed of.
Perfect. But Jeff, what is something that you're ashamed of? Well, Jeff, thank you so much for being so open and vulnerable with us on this podcast. But unfortunately, we're running out of time here, and we like to ask all of our guests this one last question before we let them go. And, for you, what is something that you're proud of?
I touched on this slightly before, but I'll just sort of reiterate it. I'm just very proud that I'm a college dropout that broke into school to make T-shirts, 12 of them to start. And now there's it's been a quarter century of one brand.
Yeah.
I've never changed my brand name or logo for a fucking quarter century.
Yeah.
Wow.
Talk about insanity. And then now there's 50 plus people with families, and it's just crazy that those people believe in my vision and are supporting it, and it's reciprocal, and because whenever I see someone that I'm giving a pension or 401k or healthcare to, I'm still thinking I broke into school to make a T-shirt, and now I can give you a 401k. That's insane to me,
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm just really proud of. Outside of hype drops, resell, and all that shit, those are all simply a byproduct of this sort of community and team that I've been able to help build.
Damn.
That's
I love
amazing.
that. That's truly some American dream.
The good America.
Good America.
Not the current American dream.
Entrepreneur, but yeah, that's your story. It's really inspirational. Yours is truly a story of
Thanks,
the entrepreneurial spirit that is one aspect that makes America good. But it's inspiring. It's really, really fucking cool.
I mean, also it can happen outside of America. I'm shaking the. I want to also. I want to just say, before you go, I really like the thing where you said if you really like doing something and just you can put it online and make it happen. I feel like people truly don't understand how much freedom you have to do that.
Yeah.
It's like, and the thing is, what I found, you know, like what we were saying about liking to do something and not feeling like work. If you really like doing something, that translates. People feel that energy, you know? So whatever it is that you want to do, if you really want to do it, people can sense that. And no matter how weird it is, whatever, like basket weaving, like whatever example you gave.
There's no excuse right now to do some bullshit thing that you hate doing 40 to 50 hours a week, every week for the rest of your life. Like, there is no reason to do that at this point in the evolutionary cycle of mankind, of humankind. Like, no. Whatever you like to do, you will find through the wonders of the internet, you will find 100,000 other people that love what you do also. And you have a community.
Yeah. And even if you need to do the bullshit job to pay for, you know, getting started to do what you want.
Yeah. Work towards that. Yeah. Work towards that vision. But like, don't just think, I'll just do this until I'm 72 and that's my life. Like, please don't do that.
Damn.
That's
I love
inspiring.
That. For our listeners out there, where can they find you and your work online?
Instagram, Twitter, at Jeff Staple. I frequently update there, but I have a website, jeffstaple.tv, which kind of encapsulates everything that I do. So yeah, keep in touch and reach out.
And what about you, Young Me?
YM Mayor and Young Me Mayor on TikTok. How about you, Brian?
You guys can find me online at It's Brian Park, and you can follow our podcast at Feeling Asian Podcast on all social media platforms. And yeah, I think that's it. Thanks again for a great conversation, Jeff. And to our listeners, thanks for making it this far, and we'll see you all here next week. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot,
Bye.
guys. Have a good one.